Hello everyone. Welcome to our listeners who are with us on Australian Indian Radio. We are actually currently live on our Facebook page and also on our YouTube channel. And we are at Mental Health Awareness event at the QMC Auditorium in Brisbane. So we are currently live here and we are bringing this event live to you on Australian Indian Radio. So this event is presented by GOPIO organization. And it is sponsored by Queensland Mental Health Commission, Queensland Government. And this event is on until 9 o'clock tonight at QMC Auditorium at Kangaroo Point, Brisbane. So thank you everybody who has joined us on Australian Indian Radio, and we will be starting this event shortly.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall.
start the event. We can see that people have started to come in and the auditorium is almost full here. We'll just wait for these people to settle in and so that we can start the event. So thank you everybody who has joined us for this live event on our Facebook and YouTube pages as well. And we are on the Australian Indian Radio as well.
You can maybe do that.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So before we begin, an important announcement. Welcome to the QMC. To ensure your safety and that of all our guests, we ask you that you abide by the Queensland Government COVID-19 social distancing rules and guidelines while you're here at the venue.
It is recommended to stay 1.5 meters apart from other guests wherever possible, and please remain in your assigned seat for the duration of the event. Hand sanitizer dispensers have been installed next to the box office and the lifts for your convenience and safety.
QMC also asks that any patrons that are feeling unwell or experiencing flu-like symptoms to please inform a member of the QMC staff or to event organizers and vacate the venue immediately.
Together, we can help stop the spread of the virus and stay healthy. Thank you for attending QMC. We hope you enjoy the event and look forward to welcoming you again.
And on that note, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you, our distinguished guests, respected leaders, and of course, the beautiful audience. We welcome you on this amazing evening where we're going to have a lovely event on mental health.
I would like to thank you all for coming to an amazing presentation on the importance of something which cannot be emphasized enough, mental health. The GOPIO team has kindly decided to give us something so relevant in today's world.
Indeed. We welcome you for a presentation from a professional from the prestigious Black Dog Institute, a terrific play, and also an amazing panel of professionals with a live Q&A. Sorry, a lot of P's. I'm honored to MC today. My name is Zain Shams, and we have the amazing Bhagyashree Shalke. I see many familiar faces in the crowd, and I'm glad we can all gather here today to have a better understanding on a topic which many of us around us suffer through, graciously sponsored by the Queensland Mental Health Commission and the Queensland Government.
Thank you, Zain. We would also like to thank Black Dog Institute, Springfield City Group, Cornerstone Law Offices, World Wellness Group, Australian Indian Radio, and Brisbane Indian Times for their unconditional support. We would also like to thank our caterers for today, Kulcha Culture.
The event will also be live streamed professionally by the lovely gentlemen of All India Radio at the back on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So please do feel free to share it on your Facebook on the GOPIO page. So before we begin, I'd like to welcome on stage Auntie Betty, who's also the Treasurer of Queensland Multicultural Council, for the Welcome to Country and Acknowledgement. Please welcome her to the stage.
Thank you for that invitation and the offer to do the acknowledgement. I don't come from this country, Yagara country. I'm from southwest Queensland, so I perform acknowledgement of country, not a welcome, just to clarify things. Thank you, Usha and the GOPIO organisation for the invitation to speak here today. Today, we stand on land of the Yagara people, and I thank them for allowing me to speak on their behalf. I'm authorised by Auntie Kerry Charlton and Uncle Eddie Rusker, who are members of the traditional custodians of this land, and as protocol dictates, we must first seek their permission before we speak on their land. Can I thank them on behalf of all of us here today for their continued connection to the land, their sacred sites and their dreaming places that are spread throughout Yagara country, as well as others that are shared with neighbouring tribes of the Yugambeh, even I have trouble with that, Yugambeh, which is south of the Logan River, Yugarapul, which is west of Ipswich, Turrbal people, which is north of the Brisbane River. We believe that we come from the spirit world and that we are merely placed here to care for the land and everything on it. The storyline or dreaming stories that thread throughout these Aboriginal nations built on a strong connection to the land, and it is not only provides shelter and food, but a definitive story that connects the customs, practices and traditions to places of significance, such as Uluru, which supports the dreaming stories that are based around that area. Our spiritual healers, or our Nunkari, are the keepers of these stories and continue to hand them down to our elders, who are then responsible to teach the younger generation. Honour and respect to our elders who are present here today, as well as others from across the country. We welcome those also who have come from other countries around the world to make this land their home. But in doing so, we ask that you honour and respect our customs, cultures and traditions as we in turn accept and embrace yours. Can I also acknowledge sorry business in our community and pass on condolences to families who are suffering sorry business. But we must also remember those who have succumbed to the COVID-19 virus worldwide, as well as our brothers and sisters in the Middle East who have suffered in the recent conflict. I have an interest in this because of my heritage as an Afghani Aboriginal person. My grandfather came here with the camels and married my Aboriginal mother, so I identify my Afghani heritage, but I practice my Aboriginal culture. I'm honoured to speak here today, not only as an Aboriginal elder, but also as a worker in the mental health field. I worked in the Child and Youth Mental Health team in the Brisbane Youth Detention Centre and continued to support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander clients within the Beenleigh court system. Therefore, I've worked with my mob who have experienced audio and visual disturbances, who have been referred to medical practitioners for erratic and abnormal behaviours, particularly in BYDC, where young people are not willing to engage with people such as psychologists and psychiatrists for fear of being labelled crazy. While we may believe that substance misuse, family history and other causes may play a role in a person's mental health condition, other possibilities need to be considered and examined. There is extensive writing on Aboriginal spirituality, and while I can understand the interest in this topic, I'm also confused about the terminology Aboriginal, as this also refers to the Native American people. We as Aboriginal people know that what fits one mob in Queensland does not necessarily fit another mob, or the Noongar mob in Western Australia, the Koori mob in Victoria, and the Palawa mob in Tasmania. Simply knowing that there may be other influences, known or imaginary, helps to understand the reason Aboriginal people may refuse to engage or simply delay in seeking help. They grow up hearing stories that the grandparents talk about, but don't fully understand the story, or that the grandparents are merely passing the traditional knowledge on so that it doesn't get lost or die with them. Please don't be reluctant to seek out Aboriginal elders who may be able to help when needed. They are eager to share, so they don't get lost forever. Thank you everyone for listening, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the day. But before I go, can I please ask the spirits of this land guide and protect you as you make your way home to your loved ones. In my language, we have no word for goodbye, so I'm simply going to say Nala Nangala, which means I'm going now.
That was a wonderful speech by Auntie Betty. And now we have our next from Rakesh Sharma, who is the GOPIO's president. So he will be here shortly with his speech and introducing about this event today.
Assembly area is located at the car park. Please do not use the lifts during emergency evacuation. Fire escape stairwells can be taken, and make your way out in a safe and calm manner through the emergency exits. Now, I would like to call our respected President of GOPIO, Mr. Rakesh Sharma, for his warm welcome and for his kind words.
Thanks, Fatma. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay my respect to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests. Firstly, I would like to pay the condolence to the families that have lost their loved ones or have experienced hardship as a result of COVID-19 throughout the world. We must thank Mighty God that we are all gathered here well and alive. We are lucky we live in this country, which is, I think, safest country in the world. I welcome each one of you. My special welcome to our Lady Mayoress, Nina. She just arrived. Thanks for coming. She is our patron of Women Council. Auntie Betty, Councillor Angela Owens, and Councillor Vicky Howard, I believe they are both running late. Umesh Chandra, OAM, our founder member and past president. Pradeep Gurasia, president of Gold Coast GOPIO. Sonia Kumari and Victoria Webras from Queensland Transcultural Mental Health. Peter Ferry and Kate Catty from Black Dog Institute, Dr. Suman L. Govan from Bellamont Private Hospital, Nick from Corner Law's Office, Parveen Malish and Uma from Springfield City Group, they are always very helpful to us. Vikas Sinha from Finance Point Australia. Vikas is our past executive member. He was holding a secretary job, vice president, put in there any doubt. And he would be our, I think, future GOPIO president too. Is that right, Vikas? You are ready yet? Pushpinder Brai, Pritham Krishnam, and Prakirti Gurgoraj from Mental Health Foundation, Australia. Threes and Mohammed Kumari from World Wellness Group. Janet Dean, she is our big supporter too. She always support GOPIO right from the beginning, the day we start. Yusuf Ali Khan, our founder member and past president. Mental health is often used as a substitute for the mental health conditions such as depression. Mental health conditions can have a substantial effect on all our areas of life such as work performance, relationship with the family and friends, and even ability to participate in the community. Everyone has some risk of developing a mental health disorder, no matter their age, sex, or income. A large proportion of the people with the mental health disorder have more than one condition at a time. Mental health conditions such as stress, depression may develop due to the underlying of life-changing physical health problems such as cancer, diabetes, or any other serious sickness. And we all know that COVID has also contributed a lot to this one. I will not talk more with the mental health as we got a lot of specialists today. I would like to congratulate Arpat Singh and my full GOPIO team for organizing this program and providing information and support on a mental health. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rakesh Sharma, the President of GOPIO, for your kind words. I would now like to call upon stage my amazing friend and the man who organized today's event, Mr. Arpit Singh, the Treasurer of GOPIO, to introduce the event. Please make him feel welcome.
Hello, everyone. Finally, we're here. Thank you so much, each and every individual present here. I'm so glad. I would like to join my hands and say thank you so much for being here and appreciating the value of mental health and mental well-being. Thank you. My friends, Maya in the audience, beginning with the birthday wishes for her. It's her birthday week going on, so happy birthday, Maya. Happy birthday, Dolly B. Yeah. Today's event is my baby. I've been planning it for months. So finally it's happening, and I'm so glad it's happening. Sorry, I'm not able to see it. I've been planning it for a couple of months. I've been quite passionate about mental health awareness for a few years now. Some of you might have seen my videos that I've posted on YouTube. Some interviews I did. One was with Suman, a lovely Suman Dua. Yeah, so I've been working in this space for years now, and this is my passion. I've realized it now. I wish I had realized it in school. I would have been in another profession. So yeah, I'd like to tell more about myself. I have no apprehensions in sharing that I went through a phase of severe depression in 2019 and have still got some anxiety issues, which, like many of us, I've been working on and managing it, I think, quite well. So it was the support of my close friends and family and the doctors that brought me out of it, and I don't have any shame in talking about it, because why should we not talk about it? The idea is simple. Take care of your mental health and mental well-being similar to your physical health. There shouldn't be no differentiation between the two. As we go to see a GP, when we have a flu or a headache or anything, we should take it seriously, the mental health issues as well, and just go see a GP. It's not hard. It's not something different, and don't be afraid to talk about it. It's nothing to be ashamed about. When I pitched the idea of the event, this awareness drive to GOPIO committee, it was welcomed with open arms. The whole committee and now the whole community is in this together. So I'd like to have a round of applause for all of us being in this together. Thank you for coming. Thank you again for becoming a part of our humble initiative. We've got an amazing lineup of speakers, panelists, and performers here. So sit back, relax, understand, and enjoy the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
He's so tall.
Thank you so much. That was Arpit Singh. He is the organizer of this mental health event, actually. So this event is only possible, I think, because of Arpit's efforts that he has made. He's brought this event together tonight. And I think it's a very important topic about mental health, because many of us actually don't sometimes get time to talk about it with our friends. So it's very important that events like this should be held so that we can come out, acknowledge that there are a lot of mental health issues, and if somebody needs to go and see somebody or talk to somebody, I think this event is a good reminder for all of us.
But my first thing I want to do also, and thank you, Auntie Betty, it was absolutely fantastic seeing you speak, and also just want to, respect, show to the traditional owners of this country and past and present traditional owners of this country and people in the audience. So thank you very much. And I'm just going to give a thumbs up for the next slide, if that's all right. So there we go. So the topic tonight is breaking down depression. And it's a story I actually am going to tell you. And that's one of the things I've learned from indigenous cultures is they're storytellers. And stories is the things that people remember. And so what we do at the Black Dog is we're actually telling a story. And this is actually a positive story. It's a serious issue we're dealing with, but there's hope. And this is hopefully in tonight's short presentation I'm going to share with you is to help you through that. So, a little bit about the Black Dog Institute for those of you that don't know them. They are basically a medical research organization that specializes in mental illness and programs. So it's all evidence-based. So they're based in Sydney. And we've got lovely Kate here and Peter from Toowoomba tonight supporting me here. So what they do is they translate their research very quickly into practical programs, materials, information available for people like you or myself to get access to. So if you haven't done so already, please go and look at the Black Dog Institute. They've got some fantastic resources you can download and so forth. So, so they do research. They've got some clinics in Sydney, day clinics. We do community education presentations, and that's my role as a community presenter, is to help share the story and the message about understanding mental illness and what to do. So I'll go to the next one. So yeah, so my story. So why I'm talking to you in this thing. So you've probably gathered by my accent, I'm not born here either, like many of you here. I was born in South Africa and grew up on a farm. I was actually come from a very privileged background. My dad was a GP in a small rural town. So I'm the eldest of 5 children. And, we were on top of the food chain. We were the best of the best. And then tragically, my dad was killed in an accident. And then I think I was about 13 and my siblings younger. And then we went from top of the food chain to the bottom of the food chain like that, you know, when my mum then subsequently got involved in an alcoholic relationship. So I grew up in a domestic violence environment for over a decade. And I lost my way. I didn't know how to process, how to deal with it. And actually lucky to be alive, standing in front of you here tonight, speaking to you in some poor decisions I made during that stage of my life. And you know, that's interesting too. So back then, we did not have the luxury of this information I'm going to talk to you about tonight and we're going to hearing about. And when I sort of got myself through that phase and I had help to do that, I couldn't do it by myself. And I'll share with you some of the examples of that later. But in hindsight and now being a bit more aware of what this is all about, I've shown definitely some symptoms of bipolar disorder, which is that extreme sort of mood swings, you know, from extreme high, you know, on 24/7, reckless decisions, spending the money, and then bang, can't get out of bed. You know, just no energy, flat. I don't know if you can relate to that, and so forth. And then guess what? What my therapy was back then? Self-medication, you know, more booze, more drugs, all those sort of things, and which is unfortunately what sometimes happens. And I was in a vicious circle and so forth. And I was very fortunate to get through that through some help. And I remember this lady, Corinne the Carpenter was her name, and she's actually a counsellor that worked for an EAP, Employee Assistance Program, that when I was an organisation I used to work with. And just her demeanour and talking to her and feeling safe, talking to her this, because this domestic violence thing was that taboo, that dirty secret that only all of us in the family knew. And he never spoke about that, you know, and it's an anchor or a rock, you know, we carry through our lives. But when I spoke to this lady a few times, and then so just that rock just disappeared. So that's one of the things, the call to action out of this presentation tonight is there's help there. We just need to know where to go and find it. And we're very privileged, as a number of the people already said, about living in Australia. You know, we've got some of the best in this country. We just need to know where to go and get it and get past the stigma, because there's still stigma associated with mental illness, because it's actually a cruel illness, and a couple of the speakers has already said it's a bona fide illness, folks. It's not a bung on or, you know, pretending. The difficulty with it is I can be standing in front of you right now clinically depressed and you can't tell, because I can put that facade on, hey, everything's all right. Whereas if I was in crutches or a broken arm or whatever, you can see that. So, and I give an example also, like, so it's as people said, it's like having cancer or heart disease and so forth. But it's actually a cruel illness. Mental illness is actually a cruel illness. And I'll give an example of that. Two friends of my beautiful wife, Debbie, is here with me tonight as well, that we both know, and they both at different stages in their lives contracted breast cancer. And it was quite interesting how they both almost became aggressive to this bloody thing, breast cancer. You know, they changed the way they worked, they changed the way they lived, they did their research, they got professional advice, etc., and they both touched wood, and thank you very much, they beat it in the 5, 10, 20 years test, right? So they use their intelligence, their brain power to fight this disease. Where when we're mentally ill, we lose that feeling, do we? We lose that motivation to fight for ourselves, whatever. And that's what I'm saying. It's a cruel illness, and it deserves attention like any other bona fide illness. And once again, tonight's presentation and all the wonderful people that's going to be here tonight talk to you is to further help us being educated around this and what to do. And it's actually a sign of strength. So up it, you know, take a bow. I'll also, you know, hold my hands to you, particularly as blokes, to speak up about this. That is strength, to do that publicly. Is that a fair comment, folks? That's strength, yeah. Up it, yeah. Good on you, mate. And so forth. Because we can't do this alone. We all need help. So yeah, so it's about understanding what mental illness is. So it's about becoming more aware. What's the symptoms, or what's the things that I need to be aware of, and then where and how to seek help, because that's another thing. And then how can we live our lives, to the best capability holistically. So there's Arpit. Well done, Arpit. You're good. All right, we'll go to the next slide. Thanks, mate. So why understand mental illness? Okay, I'm going to ask you a question now, right? You don't have to put your hand up. This is a safe environment. But I'm going to ask you, who in the room, it's totally voluntary, who in the room has been touched metaphorically in some way or another by mental illness, whether it's a family member, a work buddy, yourself? Can I see a raise of hands? Yeah. Wow, yeah. So if you look around you and all the hands, it's like basically all the hands are up. So what does that tell us? What does that tell us? Who could tell me? It's everywhere. It's pervasive. It's part of society. So yeah, so let's talk about it. Let's educate ourselves about it. Let's find help. Let's put our hand up. That's what this is about. So, okay, next one. So there's the statistics. So 1 in 5 Australians in a given year will experience a mental illness. 1 in 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's phenomenal. 50% of the Australian population in their lifetime will experience mental illness. It's staggering statistics, folks. And once again, too, like, the president, like, you made a comment, this is one of the safest countries to live, isn't it? Beautiful, fresh air, no wars, but yet, unfortunately, the statistics is going the wrong way. It's going north with this stuff. So we all need to get involved in this in some way or another to look after ourselves and our loved ones and to understand what's going on. All right, so let's just spend some time to talk about some of the main ones that we're experiencing in Australia. So depression is one. So depression. So I'll go to the next slide. Next one, yeah. Right. So understanding depression. So once again, it's recognizing what some of the symptoms. And as you can see there on that slide, so mood swings are normal. Some days, you get out of bed and you can take anything on. You feel up there, and other days you just feel flat. And that's okay. So mood swings are normal. And if you're a parent, there's over 100 and plus, 100 something emotions we experience, from extreme lightness and happiness and this end of the scale, and to here extreme depression, almost death, and anything in between. So we're very complex. There's a lot of emotions we experience. But if you're a parent, you can experience all of those emotions in 1 minute, is it? I love them, and wring their neck, So we do have those sort of things. However, here's some of the clues. So if those mood swings persist, and now I want you to listen very carefully, lean in. I want to listen what I'm going to say, because I'm going to ask you later. It's a bit of a test, right? So I'll get to the next slide, if you don't mind. So there's 2 things to know if it's depression. 1, are you feeling down? Is your mood impacted for a certain period of time? And here's a rule of thumb. It's 2 weeks or longer. 2 weeks or longer. If you're feeling flat, or your mood is just, you did your normal self. If it persists, there's a rule of thumb for 2 weeks or longer, there's a sign things may not be well. And the other driver is enjoyment. When we start losing interest in the things we normally find pleasurable, going out in the park with the kids, or taking the dog for a walk, or whatever the things that we like doing, if we start losing interest in that could be a sign as well, things are not well. So there's the 2 things to think about. What's my mood like? And what's my enjoyment in life, right? I want even to think right now, what's it there? I said, if it's on a daily 2 or 3 day thing, 4 days, that's right. But if it's 2 weeks or longer, then there's a sign that's not right. So, and there's some features, and now with clinicians here in the room that can give me much more detail around that, but just a couple of guidelines around that. So you can, as you can see on the slide there, there's a whole pile of things, from changes in appetite. Wait, I know somebody that suffered from clinical depression, and within a month, he put on about 30 kilograms. Just like that. And I've seen the other side of people, they lose weight just instantly, very quickly, so there's a clue. Poor concentration, memory, lowered self-esteem or self-worth, less enjoyment in life, change in sleep, reduced sex drive, low energy levels, increased anxiety, negative self-talk, and less able to get angry very quickly or teary very quickly. And there's others, but if you go into the Black Dog website. But the point here is, so listen in, the second part of the test, 5 of these. If you experience 5 of these and more, and they persist for 2 weeks or longer, then it's time to seek help. There's something not right. You with me there? So that's some of the clues around whether there's depression or not. Or if you're with somebody, whether it's a work colleague or a family member, you may pick up some of these things yourself. And I'll talk about how to help people later. Right, so then the next one is bipolar disorder. Used to be called Manic Depression, I think, prior to bipolar, but it's extreme mood swings. And where people get into extreme highs, and said they can go for days without sleep. And they become super, like superheroes almost. They're gonna change the world and so forth. But then they come down with a crash where they can't get out of bed, like depression. It's a form of depression. As a matter of fact, there's a correlation between highly creative people sometimes and the bipolar disorder, actually. So it's an interesting phenomenon. So bipolar is a form of depression. So I'll go to the next slide. So, so there's your lows and highs. So elevated mood, less need for sleep, more energy, etc., etc. So, and I said, these things didn't exist when I was going through my episodes in life. But now knowing this, all these things, tick, 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 that's me. I'm just lucky to get through it, and live through it. So now we have got the help and the resources available. All right, the next one, and this is almost epidemic proportions in Australia, is anxiety. Anxiety, and once again, a certain level of anxiety is good. That butterflies in the stomach, even like he's talking today, a little bit of anxiety, but then we can convert it into performance, Peter? You reckon? Yeah. But that's okay, it makes us perform. But anxiety, there's a range of disorders that comes under anxiety, like phobias and compulsive sort of disorders, if you like. So I'll go to the next slide. So there's a couple of clues for you to recognize whether it's actually a problem. So worry and fear. So it's persistent. And it's getting in your way. So when it starts impacting in your way of life, the way you perform in your job or your relations with people around you, your quality of life, combined with some physical symptoms. And once again, people that experience it, they describe it like, it's almost like an elephant sitting on your chest. You can't breathe, and so forth. So it's like a tightness in neck and muscles. So there's some of the physical sort of. And sometimes when we do these presentations, some people actually feel that happening with them as well. So once again, there's some clues whether it's normal or whether it's not normal, and whether we need to go and seek help. So that's anxiety. Then the next bit here is seeking help, and this is the bit. This is why we're calling everybody to action, and the help is there. We just need to know where and what to do. So I'm going to ask you now, so if you think you or somebody you know about suffer from some of these symptoms I've just explained, where should they go? What's a good first port of call? Who can tell me? A GP. GP, yeah. That's usually a good start. And that's what we recommend as a Black Dog. Go and see the GP, but make sure if you're going to see the GP, book a long appointment. It's important because they're busy, and if you don't book a long appointment, they're going to very quickly make a diagnosis, and it may not be a proper diagnosis, and maybe give you a script and off you go. Because you're going to need time to explain to them the symptoms you're experiencing so they can make a proper diagnosis, so that it can refer you on to a proper a clinician like a psychiatrist or a psychologist or another professional in the field, but they need time. The other one as well, be patient, folks, because not all GPs are same level of interest. As a matter of fact, the Black Dog Institute runs a program, hi Kate, that actually put GPs through a program about how to properly assess for these things. So, because I've had people in some of these presentations say to me, wow, we're just struggling to get GP we can connect with. So please be patient. Be patient. Talk to people. Do your research or go and see different GPs, but find one that you're going to click with, and that's in its space. Because some GPs are more interested maybe in other health aspects as opposed to the mental well-being and health stuff. So find them. And Black Dog Institute also work very closely with Beyond Blue, which most of us are familiar with. So, and via the Black Dog and Beyond Blue websites, they actually have got some links to clinics or medical practices in Australia that actually specializes also in mental well-being. So if you're not sure who to go and talk to, there's another resource to go and look for. But that is critically important to make that appointment, make a long appointment, explain the symptoms properly, and then get the proper referral. But please be patient. Okay, so when to seek help, so 3 signs. Do you mind just go back to that previous slide, please? Did you listen? What are the rule of thumb signs that I or somebody need to go and seek some help? How many symptoms? 5. Very good. How many weeks? 2. And what's the third driver of now it's time to seek help? Third point. Enjoyment. Yeah, if it's impacting on the quality of your life. All right. Well, they are a smart group. But this is a very intelligent group of people. You didn't lie. You're right, mate. Well done. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. So I found the right support. So mine was by hook and by crook, and I've got some people that I confide in. I've got my beautiful wife that's kept me on a straight and narrow for many years now. Thanks, Debbie. And said I spoke to a professional and professionals over the years around, and like you are, but I carry my heart on my sleeve. Yeah, I tell people, and it's amazing, you know, how much help and support is out there, rather than pretend, because I lived with that too long, and it almost destroyed me. It almost killed me by pretending everything is, you know, and so forth. So that was what I did. So see a doctor. We spoke about that. So we'll go to the next one. Treatment options. There are many treatment options available, and mental illness is a complex topic, and everybody is impacted differently. And once again, there's some clinicians in the room that can further elaborate on that later. But it can vary from counseling therapy, drug therapy, whole range of different sort of employee assistance programs if you're in a corporate sector. So there are many different types of treatments available, but every individual is different. So that's once again why we urge you to get professional advice and support in what works for you. And just once again on that one too, I'm thinking of another a young couple, they've got a daughter that's been struggling with mental illness, bipolar actually, by the way, for most of her youth life. And she was not properly diagnosed till in her early 20s. And I believe bipolar is actually one of the ones that's always, sometimes the hardest to diagnose or misdiagnosed and so forth. And they didn't find the right professional for a long time, but then it clicked. And they tried different medications, and then and everything was a happy ending in the end. They found the right practitioner and the right medication, but it was a series of stop-starts. So that's once again, it's just that patience again. All right, and then so other support available. So there's a myriad of I said, good information available on the Black Dog website. So there's My Compass, and we can further with the clinicians later talk more about some of the other online support mechanisms. Some great research the Black Dog is doing as well, and we've all got these things in our pockets now, you know, and how to use them to help us with management of anxiety and depression and all these things we talk about. In terms of crisis, so Lifeline. So make sure, you know, you've got that accessible. And I say to people, it's a bit like a parachute, this stuff. When we're feeling okay, you don't think about this stuff. But when we have an episode or there's a difficult thing going on, then and we're not thinking clearly, this is when this becomes important. So have a fridge magnet, or have it written down somewhere, or have the information if you think you or your family may be at risk or at work. Have the information easily accessible, so when people are in a episode state or whatever, then we can know who to talk to. So fantastic organisation, Lifeline. Helping others. So you're all familiar with the Are You OK campaign? Are you OK? That's fantastic, Are You OK? And it shouldn't just happen once a month. In October, I think it's a campaign. It should happen every day. And I think it's so good because it's just signaling to somebody that you've noticed that he or she is not right. You're not prying, you're not psychoanalyzing them, you're not telling them what to do. You're just letting people know you've noticed they're not their normal self. Now, based on these symptoms I described, if you know somebody you've seen they're not right, all you have to say is, are you okay? Then I've got a choice. I can say, no, I'm all right, mate, or actually, no, I'm not. And if they're not, then you can then suggest some action to take, like going seeing a GP. But there's 2 more steps involved. Here's another test. Albert, are they going to get this one? Are you okay? No, I'm not. Okay, I suggest you go make an appointment with your GP, make a long one. What's the third step after they've done that? Yeah, what's that? Check up on them. Check in again. Yeah. Pete, subtly, you said you're going to make an appointment with your doctor last week. Did you actually do that? Exactly. Follow up with them and then so forth. Because one of the things when people are depressed, that's one of the, once again, that cruelness about the illness is that people feel nobody understands them. Nobody understands what I'm going through. And 2, they don't want to be a burden on other people. And that's the worst thing to be like for people. That's when they socially withdraw and they become at higher risk. And I said, this is a serious illness because lots of people lose their lives every year through suicide and so forth. So this helping others is very important. Just signaling to people, I'm there if you need me, or here's some support, and have you done anything about it? And I've done it many times, actually, in my profession, in my business. I'm self-employed, run my own business, Debbie and I. And I had a guy, I do a lot of work in the construction industry. And this young CA, contracts administrator, he's 30-ish, he's got a young family, and during the break, as a leadership program I was running, he was talking to me, and he looked like I probably look like that. You know, when the lights shine, and when you're driving in the kangaroo's eyes, you know. Stunned, you know, the lights. He looked like that, but was serious. Like I reckon he was close to burnout. Because he was telling me he's absolutely fatigued. Long hours, it's like 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week in the construction industry. Young family at home. And he didn't know what to do. And I said, mate, what you need to do when we finish the session today, you need to promise me, I wasn't nice about that, I was very direct. You need to promise me you're going to make an appointment with your GP as soon as it's finished to talk to him about this. And I held him to account. I asked him the next time when I saw him, did you do that? And he says, yes, he did. And then he got some advice as to where to go. So sometimes we need to help people out like that because they may not know where to go. But helping others is very important. And there's the Are You OK scenario. We've spoken about that. And then the final sort of part of the short presentation I'm doing here tonight is the staying well bit. And I call it resilience or building our capability to know that mood swing, that dull. Some people, when they get knocked in life, the stresses fall down, they can't come back up or they struggle. So there's a lot of things you and I can do to be proactive in this. And it's a range of things. It's a bit of like a recipe. You know, if you're going to make a carrot cake or that nice curry, I should use that. Nice curry. We love curry. Kate's going to make me one. All right, a little bit of this and a bit of spice of that, not too much of that. And then you get that beautiful curry or what dish you make. If you lose or you take a couple of hours, then it's not the same. So to help us protect ourselves as best as we can against mental illness, if you like, there's a number of things. And once again, based on the evidence-based research from Black Dog, it's things like exercise, right? Some form of movement, right? So to whatever your capability is. So don't go and start running marathons and eat seed and grass now because of this, you know, in your limits. But some type of regular movement, and it does produce, you know, endorphins and things that lift our mood. That's actually how I deal with when I feel flat, kayak on Moreton Bay. That's all my sciences, vital signs in the right space. The other one is nutrition, you know, like it's about be conscious what we eat, you know, more lean, unprocessed food than things out of boxes and packets, you know, that's that box of that Wheaties you had for breakfast this morning, or that Cocoa Pops. Tomorrow you'll be better off to eat the box. There's more fiber in the cardboard than it's actually inside the box, you know. So, only kidding, don't eat the box, but no, lean, unprocessed, so what we eat. Then the other thing is social connectivity, and this is why this is so fantastic, GOPIO, what you guys are doing here, this community. You connect, you know, you feel safe with each other, you've got similar interests, and don't underestimate the power of that family, good friendships, and keep working on that and build on that. Then the other one is time for yourself, you know, meditation, in nature, whatever it is. Arts, you know, there's beautiful art, lady, the art, they're fantastic, and so forth. And the other one is helping out, giving back to communities, like when you can, or working in a, you know, cooking the sausage sizzle at school, or whatever the case may be. So there's a number of very simple things. If we do them regularly, consistently over time, we do reduce our risk of some of these illnesses that we talk about now. So there you go, folks. So it's short, sharp, and I said hopefully in the panel discussion with the clinicians we can further delve into some topics, but just to summarize here, so it's about understanding mental illness, so what the symptoms and the signs are. And what is the number of symptoms? 5, and how many weeks? 2, well done. And then who we're going to talk to, who we're going to call. The GP is usually the first call. And then how are we going to help others? Are you okay? What do you reckon? Yeah. So are you going to join me and Kate and Peter and the black dog to fight mental illness? Yes. Can you hear you? Can you hear you? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Peter Ferreira for the amazing presentation. It takes a lot for someone, especially initially, to open up and be vulnerable and impart knowledge on all of us. As we saw previously, it is very prevalent, and 1 in 5 is a very breathtaking number. But ladies and gentlemen, can we have another huge round of applause for Black Dog Institute for what they do?
So that was a very lovely presentation by Peter Ferreira from Black Dog Institute. He actually explained it really, really well, what signs to look for, what action you need to take, and how long you have to actually watch out for those signs. So that was a very good information. Even if we don't want to use that information for ourselves, or hopefully we'd never have to use it for ourselves, but I'm sure we can guide with this information to our family and friends. So thank you to Peter for coming here and explaining about the mental health issues in so much detail and providing that information.
I want to also take the time to thank you for all the frontline work you do for your community, especially in Logan. Where would we be without you and your heart? I'd like to acknowledge our MCs today. MCing is not as easy as it looks. It's really hard, and it's a skill. And to have such young professionals as you, congratulations and thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge Mr. Rakesh Sharma, President GOPIO Queensland, Mr. Pradeep Goazia, President GOPIO Gold Coast, Mr. Shyam Das, President Federation of Indian Communities in Queensland, Mr. Ferreira, Dr. Sarwan Alagawan from the Belmont Private Hospital, Ms. Sonia Kumari from the Queensland Transcultural Mental Health Centre and a speaker, Umesh and Usha Chandra, and Arpet, thank you for your brave story today, but also for your vision of doing this. And I note in my speech here, I have been given the task of saying the need for mental health in 2021. The need for the discussions of mental health. Is there a need? There has never been a greater need for discussions, open and transparent, in our community. My husband, the Lord Mayor of Brisbane, runs a multicultural but also youth roundtable. And that youth roundtable draws young people with promising futures, although every young person has a promising future, from all the schools around Brisbane, and he hears their viewpoints and their thoughts about how Brisbane could be better or the direction in which it's going. Over the last couple of years, their number one concern has been the environment. They've been genuinely concerned that we're living on a ticking time bomb. But this year, for the first time, in an unprecedented move, their number one concern, these young people who should be not worrying about this kind of thing, their number one concern was mental health. Now, we heard some of the statistics before, that 1 in 2 of us will suffer from mental illness at one time in our life. 1 in 16 of us is suffering currently from depression. That's clinical depression. 16% of the population is suffering from anxiety. That's roughly 2 million. And you know what really worries me? Our young people are killing themselves in a way that they've never done before. So you're more likely to die or lose your battle with mental illness or depression by suicide by the time you're 40 than any other thing. No cancer, not falling or accidents, but mental illness. Roughly 9 people per week are taking their lives. They're losing that battle. 7 of those are young men. Should we be talking about this? 3,000 per year. These people. But let's not just think about the people who've lost the fight. Let's think about the ricocheting effects of those deaths, those massive losses on our community. The families, or what they call the suicide survivors, the people who are left behind. So in psychology, they measure the level of trauma against benchmarks in history, such as the Holocaust. The survivors of the Holocaust, that's considered one of the highest benchmarks of trauma that someone can go through. They say that if you are a suicide survivor, that is, the person left behind, that your psychological effects, the trauma that you will feel in your lifetime, is equivalent to that. So let's spare ourselves this. And let's spare these young men and women, or older men and women, from feeling that hopelessness. And the best way that we can do that is to open that dialogue in a way that no one can ignore. We should all be talking about this, and there should be absolutely no shame. If you went to a doctor with an oozing sore on your arm or your leg, would you feel shame about that? So if you have then likewise an oozing sore on your soul or your psyche, why should there be any type of shame? And for anyone in the audience who is currently going through a dark time, I want to say this to you. You will come through it. We've heard how it has transformed people's lives, and not only will you come through it, but you will be bigger and better than ever before and able to talk about it. Darkness is always followed by light. It is an inevitability that every time the sun goes down and the night starts, that the sun will rise again, and we must keep that hope in our community. So thank you so much for having me here today. And I want to congratulate GOPIO for opening this dialogue, for providing this forum into which to honestly discuss mental health. One of the number one contributors, and what they're saying too, what they're saying is our new generation coming through, and I don't know what they call them. I don't know what the new generation's called. I know that I'm Generation X. What is the new generation? Gen Z. Oh, wow, that sounds like a song. But they said, and this is what they're predicating, that it will be one of the greatest shadow pandemics. That's what we're facing. So we need to retrench, we need to pull back, and we need to do differently. And that's what today is. It's opening that. It's doing things differently. And especially with our multicultural community, who perhaps also has a higher level of that shame attached to it. And so the fact that the Indian community is moving forward, keeping pace, and setting that example, I congratulate you for that today. So ladies and gentlemen, there is no shame. Let's walk in the light, and let's support and love each other, because that's what we need to do here. Best wishes for a very bright future.
Thank you, Lady Mayoress Nina Schreiner, for addressing the crowd and for emphasizing the importance of mental health. Next, it's time for our panel discussion. May we kindly invite the following panelists to the stage.
Dr. Soman Alangawin, Senior Consultant Psychiatrist at the Belmont Private Hospital, specializing in adult psychiatry. Professor Alangawin has special interests in mood disorders, ADHD, anxiety disorders, neuropsychiatry, and dual disability.
Sonia Kumari from Metro North Mental Health Services. Sonia has a master's degree in social work. Her vast experience spans disability, child safety, legal aid, disaster recovery, mental health, and labor and women welfare.
Mr. Peter Ferrer from the Black Dog Institute, who gave us the lovely presentation earlier before. And finally, Mr. Umesh Chandra, OAM, who is the editor and publisher of the Brisbane Indian Times. He's the producer for Australian Indian Radio. Umesh has also held many community leadership roles, including being the founding president of GOPIO, the founder, amongst many other achievements and positions.
And last but not least, Arpit Singh, the GOPIO treasurer, back up to stage to please conduct this panel discussion.
Thank you, guys. I hope this is working. Hello, everyone. I'm back. Thank you, Dr. Soman. Thank you for arriving here. Hello. Yeah, all good. So, let's start this discussion, which is very much needed. And I am so glad that we can talk about it openly. There's nothing to hide. And we'll try and understand more about what depression, what anxiety, what mental health illnesses are, and how we can cope with them. So let's get into it. Dr. Soman, I just wanted to check about COVID's mental health effects and impacts, because that's one of the biggest reasons why people are feeling low and not themselves at the moment, especially how our beloved India is going through COVID. So would you mind telling us how to cope with COVID impacts?
Thank you very much. I think it's quite important at this stage people to understand psychological and emotional impact has got significant impact on mental health. As we are all aware, any sort of mental health issue, we always try to look at what sort of precipitating or predisposing factors that can affect one's mental health. If you look at lately, people have been emotionally going through a lot of stress because of this unknown fear impacting on mental health, specifically about COVID. If you look at the COVID situation, what's happening in India, the general fear and pandemic anxiety has put a lot of people into significant stressful situation, either leading to a depressive episode or significant adjustment issues. But as a fear of COVID, still this date, we don't know what is the long-term impact, but it is quite evident with the situation, what is impacting every day. It is going to have a significant impact, not today, for long time. So everyone need to prepare, openly discuss the fear, what COVID can impact on mental health. But I do believe that COVID has played a significant role for people who have been vulnerable, who have been predisposed for mental illness. People also been worried what would be the long-term impact because of the social support system, like kids and family members, how it has been impacted overseas. Specifically, you're not able to help them. You're not able to support them emotionally. Perhaps just talking about what you're going through with your friends and family would give a little bit of a relief, but getting some sort of professional advice at the early impact would minimize the long-term impact of mental illness.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ellen Govan. I'd like to ask my next question from Mr. Umesh Chandra. Umeshji, as you've been in this in our community, you've always been everywhere. I think every one of us have met Umeshji personally at one point in their lives here. I wanted to check, when migrants come here, what's their mental state and how should we try and help them settle in? And what's the biggest issue that they suffer from mentally?
And I repeat once again, thank you very much for that wonderful question. I think it is time that topic is discussed as well. Look, when someone comes from a different country, just that whole process of transferring from one country to another country, coming to a new country, is quite an experience in itself. So, at that time, the mental status, people are going through so much in their mind. Would this land be accepting? Would we fit in with the norms? Or, how would we be seen? How would we be perceived by the community here? So at that point in time, there's so much that's going on in their mind. Okay, about their job, some people might have a job secured, some would have to look for the jobs. So there's so much stress that's going on into their mind. And of course, individual circumstances will be different depending upon how someone has come. Some people are coming in as a family, reunion. Others, many times they're coming as students. So, when you're coming with as a student, there's so much more pressure on you. Because one, you have to secure your position in the college. You've got to, get into the right field. And of course, coming from India and from at that point in time, many people have secured loans or other things, and they've tried each and every means to get here. And whether those, they'll be able to fulfill, how would that, so that has a lot of pressure on their mind. At that time, I would say that emotionally, they would be upset. Emotionally, they would not be settled. So that is where, community organizations can play a vital role. But the problem we have found is that many times you can run seminars, you can run events, there are many community organizations which have some programs, but how do you get that message out to the new migrants who have just come? How would they know that there are such social network or such services available to them? Now, many times they don't know. When there was that problem with the Indian students at that time, I was appointed as the Queensland government's Indian liaison officer for the international students. But once again, we ran a lot of seminars and other things, but again, there were the new cohort which was coming in, and they would not know. And that's when we requested Indian High Commission to have a fact sheet, so that there's a fact sheet of someone who's coming from, as a student. It was mainly for students, that if they're coming, they be given a fact sheet of the organizations and the support network that is available here, so that when they come, they've got something, somewhere to fall on. As you know, I have personally handled many emotional or traumatic situations with the students and other the nationals as well. So, I think it is time we did have that conversation. Just to answer your question on that point, is that, at that point of entry, coming in, resettling into a new country, there's so much that's going on in their minds.
Thank you so much, Dr. Umeshji, for that elaborate answer. And I'd like to tell everyone, GOPIO Queensland is here to, if anyone wants to talk about anything, any help, we're all here. Our committee is here for Indians and everyone. My next question is to Ms. Sonia Kumari. So, Sonia ji, you're a clinician at Queensland Transcultural Mental Health Centre. I would first like to get some introduction on what your organization does and how can we get Transcultural Mental Health Centre's services.
Sure. Thank you, Arpit. Namaskar, everyone. I do want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, elders past, present, and emerging, and also thank you, Auntie Betty. In relation to your question, Arpit, I am a clinician at Queensland Transcultural Mental Health Centre. That's a statewide team, and our focus clientele is, sorry, the lights are a bit too high. I'm trying to look through the crowd. We work with people from culturally and linguistically diverse background in the context of mental health and mental illness, of course. As I said, our predominant population that we work with are called population, where we work with refugees, migrants, that could be our skilled migrants, and temporary residents rather. Our students, we work with them very closely. We do offer a few different programs. One is our clinical consultation program, where we predominantly work with the mental health teams. At times, we do work with our GPs, psychiatrists in the community. We also work with our community members and community leaders based on what sort of requirement is there. We at times do the projects with different communities where some specific community needs. For example, we recently had Sudanese community issue in one part of Brisbane, where we are working closely with them in different positions. We do offer learning and development program for our mainstream mental health team so that they understand a lot of issues, Umeshi, as you said, that our migrants do have additional burden of stresses in terms of acculturation. So we also help the team to understand these additional barriers for our communities, barriers such as language barriers, such as the understanding of mental health. I come from India myself, and my first, again, before coming into mental health, I do feel that strong stigma, and in my own journey, and I'm culprit of that, that I never thought that I'll work in mental health, because in my mind, mental health was those acute mental illness episodes you see in Bollywood, you hear about that. But now I'm working there, and I just feel so privileged to be part of those areas of work where we could work with people and raise their awareness through psychoeducation, telling them that it's simply like your generalist health. When we seek help for our physical health, we should be able to seek help for our mental illness. In terms of reaching out to us, we do have a number we do have a hotline number. Sorry, I don't remember it on top of my head. We do have some leaflets outside where those bags of goodies are there. Take a few of the resources from there, but we do have a landline number 33171234, which you can reach out to us, and we usually have a clinician available to talk to. So as a community member, you can ring us. As a family member of someone seeking help, you can reach us. As a community leader, you can reach us, or as a professional, you can reach us.
Thank you so much, Sonia ji. So I would also like to ask, so Transcultural Mental Health Center has got clinicians from different ethnic backgrounds, if I'm right?
Yes. So we actually work in we call it a co-assessment model. So we do have a team of 6 clinicians. We do have senior clinicians, as well as we do have our advanced clinicians too, who also from diverse cultures themselves. Like I'm from Indian background, we do have few others from Spanish background to somebody from China. But we also have our temporary or casual workers, nearly 150 casual workers. We call them bicultural workers. So say, for example, we're working with a culture which we don't know, we don't have expertise about. We do involve these casual workers who could be mental health practitioners, but they can also be just the cultural consultant, and they work with us, with one of our mental health clinicians to do that support for the person, family, or the clinical team we are working with.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for the work that your organization is doing. Hats off to that. I've got a few more questions, and then we'll open it to the floor for questions from the audience. Peter, so everyone must have seen that bombshell interview of Harry and Meghan Markle. In that, the thing that I noticed was Meghan, apart from all the gossip and the drama and all that, the topic, the issue that I noted was when Meghan said she left house 2 times in 4 months. She had suicidal thoughts. She wanted help but was denied because it won't look good. So do you think that happens often in normal families as well? And how should we tackle that?
Well, that's a very good question. It's a challenging one, and I'm surrounded by experts in the field here. Please help me out. But I think it's pervasive, as we all know, and the hands went up. So these feelings and thoughts, as a matter of fact, didn't have time to go in my presentation, but the Black Dog has been doing some significant work and research around suicide prevention and testing and trialing some programs in Sydney. So yeah, so many normal, not superstar families are affected by that, and as a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons I'm a volunteer for this work, because having lived through that myself, but also seeing the impact it's got, the ripple effects got on my family. Like, for example, one of my brothers, he's the second eldest brother, ducks off the class. He dealt with that episode in our life very differently. He suppressed everything, and then he imploded basically as an adult. So he's twice tried to take his life through suicide. And Debbie and I, we've supported and cared for him and his family when he's been getting psychiatric and professional proper help. He's okay, but so yeah. So to answer your question, I guess it's pervasive. Everybody's affected.
So I just wanted to understand why the families and why our friends and near and dear ones, why do they stop you from talking about it? So we're addressing the issue. Can we just go to the root cause of it? What goes in the mind of the person who's saying, let's keep it hush-hush, let's not talk about it? Can we have a quick answer to that? Any one of us?
Yeah. I think if you look at it as a mental health, it's quite stigmatic to talk about openly. But once they're reaching out to the professionals, when they're speaking about their mental health, if you look at historically, people who are moved from Southeast Asia or India, even when they go through the mental illness, they always talk about something called somatic symptoms, the physical illness. But as a professional, when they start assessing, when somebody talks about three things, like depressive cognitions, worthlessness, hopelessness and helplessness, the hopelessness is the main cardinal sign for suicide. If somebody is not going to pick up those sort of symptoms in the beginning, perhaps they want some help. Somebody need to identify to provide that sort of support. If they can't recognize as a family members, they have to reach out to professional. Unless they don't reach to professionals, it's very difficult to identify. So one of the things is that hopelessness, if somebody says, that is the cardinal sign you need to be worried about. That is the main cause for suicide. The other thing about feeling low, not interested, or all the depressive symptoms, what we categorized, even though clinically you diagnose, but somebody always talking about hopelessness, you need to be very careful about elaborating those symptoms and identifying.
So just talking about judgment here, Dr. Ellen Govind, I think one of the reasons why people don't talk about it because they don't get a good feedback. They don't get a good response from the people around them. They get a lot of judgment. People start thinking of them as, even if someone's just got a little bit of anxiety, they think of it, especially, our community, we just tag them as mad. As in one of the interviews, Yusuf Ji is here as well. He very promptly and correctly summarized it. People just tag it as mad and, we don't want to be associated with it. So do you think having more of such forums, having more discussions will remove that stigma, that judgment from people's minds? And then if we think that the other person will understand and will support me, I would be more open to sharing my feelings with someone. And that's what I did. And when I went through it, I shared it with my close friends and family. And they supported me big time because they understood what I was going through. So do you think talking more about it would do away with the
Absolutely,
judgment?
that will remove the barriers. One of the things about talking about things, and always people when they go through some psychological and emotional issue, they always seek some help. When they're trying to seek some help, if you're not going to help them, if you're not going to talk about them, if you try to minimize, it's going to impact a lot. So having forums and trying to explain, you need to identify early identification. The early identification is mainly through talking, trying to interact with them, and emotionally try to be more supportive rather than dismissive. Most of the time people, they would think that, oh, it's something, it will go away, don't worry. So these sort of judgmental statements at times, for a short period of time, it's reassuring. But as you look at a person who's going through emotionally depressed or suicidal, he always wants some sort of help. So always trying to talk about these and trying to explain and provide support would be the main thing to minimize all this stigmatization about mental health.
That's absolutely true. And also, people need to identify, a person might not be asking directly, but we need to identify the cries for help. They could be signaling it through other ways. So, Dr. Sonia, how can we identify when the person is not saying it directly? What are the signs that we can, pick on?
Yeah, some of the signs we already spoke about. My colleague from Black Dog has talked about depressive symptoms. So a lot of time people lose interest in life. A lot of time their daily living is disrupted. So they're not able to focus on the work they do. They're not able to do their household work. Their self-care is deteriorated. And in terms of suicide ideation, even if they're not saying it verbally, sometimes people giving away their belongings, or they're giving hints some other ways, which may not be very obvious, like withdrawing from everybody, not talking to loved ones, or just detaching from normal day-to-day life. And if the family notice any significant change in their behavior, in their presentation, in their self-care, in their normal day-to-day life, I think that's the time to ask and check.
Okay, so if we're calling a friend every time and he's not turning up every time, then there's definitely something.
Yes.
And we should always be with people and check in from time to time.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Can I just also add to Dr. Saab's comment about stigma? Yes, stigma is a huge thing in our communities, and not only just in our communities. I think mainstream communities also suffer from that stigma, but for culturally diverse communities, it's much more significant. Sometimes we don't have terminology, sometimes we don't have understanding how to identify. And as one of the speakers before said, that vulnerability, we don't want the world to see how vulnerable we are. We want to be perfect, and that also leads to not seeking help. In addition, sometime in our home countries, how somebody who has mental illness can be discriminated, how it impacts on their family life, how it impacts on their employment. Just because we haven't had the knowledge and access to system here, we carry those ideation with us. Sometimes those outcome or repercussion for the people can also stop them from accessing help.
That's a wonderful answer. And talking about putting the perfect facade, I'd like to ask Umeshji, why do men not talk about it? We've discussed it briefly, I think, previously as well. What's the issue?
Okay, one of the key points there is why men don't discuss it is many times, of course, the stigma that we have talked about is the underlying factor why people don't talk about it. And of course, that many times within our community, people say, the more we talk about it, the more it happens. If you hear about something, then you start hearing about that there's happening more, or it's multiplying. The copycat incidences that it will happen. Many times people believe, this is a perception, that sometimes many things are best left aside. When we were dealing with many cases with, I'm talking about DV, with my involvement with White Ribbon, many times the cases were not reported. And once we were holding a seminar similar to this, And someone after the seminar came up to me and said, "Sir, we shouldn't be discussing all this. There was an incident within my family which we could have settled ourselves, but because we went to the authorities, now it's escalated." So there are many points like this that we need to raise that awareness as what we are doing today, that it is okay. It is okay to speak out. It is okay to report. It is okay to... in many instances, people don't come out, and they don't until it's too late. Many times, even working with the police, when the police say there are many things like what we're talking about today, and even in the DV space, if it comes to that stage where police has to intervene, that means community has failed. We have not done our job in passing on that information to our communities, that it is okay. We are in a different country. The law here is your friend. If you go to law, especially with the police, many times people don't want to go there. They say, inka lafra kaun lega, who wants to go to them? That mentality, knowing that here in this country, they're here to help you. So, many times, many steps that we see are not correct because of underreporting. There are many incidents, even, be it mental health, be it DV, they are underreported. Many times they're not reported because of what was said in that interview. It will not look good. It's a bad reflection on our family. You'll bring the family name down. Let's sit down and let's sort it out and try and see if we can sort it out. But many times it doesn't happen.
Thank you for that, Umesh.
I think in addition to what Umesh said, the psychosocial impact of this has got a significant role. For example, it can affect the relationship. There is always violence within the family. There is a financial stress. So when people look at just depression and suicide, aftermath or before that, the psychosocial impact, if you don't address, then it magnifies. That's why it is important to identify. At the beginning, if you try to identify, you can minimize. You need to reach out. Unless if you're not reaching out, there is always help available. So the psychosocial impact is very, very significant. Maybe it's good in these sort of forum, perhaps explaining to them, reach out for help. At the same time, the psychosocial impact organization like multicultural organization where there is a transcultural support available, there is always some sort of network pathways available when there is an issue, how to reach and how to get support. People coming from different culture have got fear about medical legal impact. What's going to happen? I come to a new country. If I go through the legal issues, can I get a job? Perhaps they need to understand here it is not like stereotyping or trying to brand them. It's a support like any other physical health. You need to get support for mental health. That's why they don't discriminate. Perhaps you need to be very open and honest in terms of getting help. And most of the time you need to be very empathetic. That's the very, very strong statement.
And it's as easy as picking up the phone and calling the hotline number.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Exactly. That's what I'm just elaborating on as well. It's just as easy as calling someone and saying, hey, I'm not feeling well, can you help me? If you don't want to talk about it to your family, friends, if you're still worried about the judgment, stigma, just call the hotline numbers. And I've seen people calling the hotline numbers and just talking for hours with them, and then they feel relieved. It's just sharing your pain, and you might find an answer through that conversation.
And Arpit, all these services provide confidential service. So you can talk and you have a right to a confidential service. So we all work with the same rules and legislation. So whatever you talk to us, until unless there is a risk issue, we're not going to be talking to anybody. And even with the risk issue, we talk to other service, not to the community. So other people in the community would never know your business.
Thank you so much. I would just like to have a quick question-answer session with Peter. Peter, let's have a Q&A, me and you.
If it's not too hard, Arpit.
No, it's going to be sort of a rapid question-answer style.
Okay.
Yes, because we're running a bit late, So let's...
How's the audience? I still got a bit of energy in the battery?
Yeah. So, yes, so one question is people prefer to go to life coaches. That's the thing these days. I'm seeing a life coach instead of going to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So what's the difference, and is it any...
Warning.
Ah, okay, cool. Money making?
Yeah, no, look for credentialed, proper professionals. There's
Okay.
lots of, yeah.
Sure. Talking about medication, when and why is it needed? Why people don't want to take it?
Right, short answer to that, stigma, not properly understanding people, judge other people, and also it's a complex thing. It affects, and once again, I'm not expert in this at all, these guys are much more, but people are, everybody is differently affected, and some medication might work for one person or the other, so once again the recommendation is to talk to the practitioners in that field that can prescribe the proper medication.
So wait for the practitioners to prescribe
Absolutely.
it to you. Can people get addicted to it? That's one of the major reasons people don't want to.
I don't know, actually. I don't know if people can addict it. I'm not
Dr. Ellen Govan?
No, I think antidepressants are not addictive, but when they try to take something self-medicating with alcohol,
yes,
or benzodiazepine or sleep medication, those things will become dependent.
Okay.
But as such, antidepressant is not addictive if it has been prescribed properly.
So if you're seeing a psychiatrist, if you're seeing a psychologist, GP, if they have prescribed it to you, you shouldn't have any doubts in taking those medicines.
Yep. I think different people have got different sort of experiences and side effects to the medications. That's why generally people say this is not good. But you need to understand that individual human being is different. Their reaction to the medication response is different. So absolutely it's not going to become dependent unless you use some sort of stimulants or sleeping pills. Eventually, if you are not seeking, then people drinking alcohol to self-medicate to overcome the problem, then it become more dependent.
Okay, sure, understood. Loneliness due to COVID and otherwise as well. What's the one advice you'll give to people who are suffering from loneliness? Anyone?
Join a community organization.
Join GOPIO.
Such as GOPIO. The more involved you are with things, the less time you'll have to worry about. So, if you are involved with the community, you're on the go, you've got some things happening and going, it will keep your mind busy and keep your mind occupied away from all the things that you need to worry about. You'll be worrying about things, but it will be different. So, even organizing functions, it sort of gives you the insight. So, for that, it gives you that energy and all the time. So, you forget about other things.
Take a break too.
Sorry.
Now, I was just saying, take a break. We all working too hard. Like in my job myself, I do work all week, and then if we are having stressful information from back home. It was really stressful, and you constantly bombarded by so many information through media. So take a break from media. Take a break from your working schedule. Invest in yourself and your family. I guess just a bit of self-care is necessary right now.
And I'll just add on to that too, which I see in my business and my professional work I do, this whole thing about loneliness, it's a correlation between loneliness and mental and well-being, is the communication skills. That ability to fit into, and like the empathy, understanding, selfless behavior. So teach our kids this sort of stuff, and that's going to make them much more stronger down the track. That ability to fit in. Is that a fair comment? Yeah.
Definitely. One last thing. Own relationship with yourself. What does that mean? And can that help? Your relationship with yourself.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier, loneliness, you're detaching yourself. But when it comes to relationship, when people go through this difficulty, they don't want to maintain that sort of relationship. Specifically, if they're in a relationship, if they're not able to understand what the emotion is the person is going through, it can seriously impact on the relationship because they're not able to understand. If they're coming from different culture their emotion of going through about their psychological framework, if you're not very sensitive, then it can affect in different domains of the relationship. So definitely it plays a major role. So the relationship has got significant impact, but supporting through the relationship, going through this psychological event, will have a better recovery.
Yes, definitely. And meditation, we can all agree meditation helps, exercise helps, and those are the two things I'm trying to get into as well. So, yeah. We're going to open it up to the audience. We've got some goodies for whoever wants to ask the questions. I can already see hands up in the air. We can, okay, Michelle, let's have you, if I can.
So, yeah, we'll have two people sharing one mic.
I've got a question for Professor Allengoven. Can you tell me, have you ever suffered yourself from anxiety and mental illness, and how do you prevent yourself from getting mentally unwell?
Thank you. It's a good question to reassure people. Everybody, when they are born, they're always born with the trait of anxiety. So the anxiety is minimum anxiety is needed for optimum outcome. So what it means, everybody, they need to have anxiety, one or the other form. When it becomes pathological, that means you're not able to cope, it becomes significant. One of the good things about going through the training to become a professional, you need to have that sort of development within yourself, how to overcome, how you handle. Like anyone else, everybody goes through difficulty. Like everyone else, people go through the same emotions. But perhaps when I see a lot of people going through difficulty, I reflect myself, even though psychologically by God's grace, I have not gone through any sort of mental health issue. But you need to understand when things become difficult, you know which stage, at what position you stop things and move forward and change your direction of thinking. So I have not experienced anything, but supporting people going through these sort of issues, it's not that anxiety is not uncommon. Anxiety is quite prevalent. It's quite a normal thing. So if you look at something called Eric Dodson's law, you need to have a minimum anxiety for maximum output in any situations. When it becomes pathological, when it becomes a disorder, then definitely you need to seek some professional help. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mafata. So my question today is, as a young woman of color growing up in a Western society, how can I navigate the pressures put upon me from society, and which methods can I utilize to take care of myself and my mental well-being?
Thank you for the question. We did talk a little bit about how to look after yourself, but of course, as a young woman of color, and most of us who probably have some experience around those things, I'm a woman of color. When I came here, it was quite anxiety-provoking for me, especially going through some incident. Umesh, you talked about students' time, and every now and then you hear things. So having that faith, having that supportive family behind you, and again, having lots of colleagues who are actually very supportive. I work in an environment that is very diverse, not only just culturally diverse colleagues, but I do have mainstream colleagues, and we share really good relationship. So it's not like, I'm not going to say that, it doesn't happen. But at the same time, we do have lots of positive around us. Investing in self-care. Current time is really difficult for youngsters, especially around social media. You have to look certain way, you have to feel certain way, and you have to, project yourself in certain way. So sometimes giving yourself space from that is also very important, surrounded by, especially for women, sisterhood. You have to have good friends around. It could be your family, it could be your work colleague, it could be anybody. Say, for example, if you are in school, have to have some good friends around, share some time with them, and also have some good interest. And one of my colleagues here said about empathetic relationship with your society, with your community, sharing or being part of some positive cause, contributing to the society is very rewarding, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think probably self-esteem and confidence. So that's the key thing. Otherwise, what happens, if you become very emotionally sensitive for anything, if you're not openly talking to your colleagues, then perhaps then you start internalizing yourself. You lose your confidence. Once you start losing your confidence, you start getting away from other friends. So always try to be more positive, at the same time talking about the same thing and trying to look at and build up your confidence level and self-esteem is the key thing. I think color is something people always worried about. People always worried about body image disturbances. But you need to understand at the end of the day, we're all human beings. At the end of the day, when people talk about certain things, it's all from different culture, but ultimately it leads to one thing. Build up your confidence, self-esteem. These two things are very, very important to move forward. All right? Thank you.
And just building on that, I think this is something which we dealt with when we were dealing with the Indian students, incidents that were happening at that time. And we explained that, we've been here for over 37 years, and some of the experiences that were faced by them, I said, we've been here for that long, why didn't we as a person of color had to face that? And the key point was what Dr. has just said, having that self-confidence, the way you walk and the way, and being that. So that was part of the our seminars which we ran at the gurdwaras and all the temples, was, how to carry yourself, how to, walk in the community and in the society with confidence. Be yourself, there's nothing wrong. And being yourself and being confident. So, when someone, with our confidence walks into a place and, without looking at it, when he just walks in, and when a person walks in and is not sure about himself, that low self-esteem, that as Dr. G has rightfully mentioned, is the key factor. So just be yourself, it's all okay. We are all part of it.
And can I also add, Australia being such a multicultural country, we have to respect each other's cultures. So as long as you're respecting the other culture, be it Australian, Asian, any other culture, they will give you the respect back. So it has to be a give and take situation, and respect, if you give the other person respect, they are bound to give it to you back. So that's my take on it.
And you also need to be a little bit assertive, isn't it? When you need some help, be assertive to seek some help.
Sure. Can we have the next question?
Got a question.
Sorry, can we have that lady there? Okay, yes, sure, awesome.
I've got a question for Sonia. Sonia, I work for a charity. I've been working for a charity in the Logan area for 15 years. And it really breaks my heart to see all the migrants that come out by boat that have been put into the community with no income, no help, and hopelessness of not knowing what's going to happen. I know some families that have migrated from one country, especially from Iraq, where it's been bombing and everything, gone to Cyprus, stayed there for 10 years, started a new life. The Greek economy collapsed, had to leave in a hurry, came to Australia, been here for 8 years, waiting to find out from the government what's happening, and having such mental health issues. I'm getting older. How can I start again? How can I help my children? What future have I got? How can I help them? I've had so many of them come in. Some of them get no help whatsoever. And it's really heartbreaking not to be able to help so many of them.
That's a wonderful question, and I wish I could answer all your concerns, but definitely in terms of their mental health, Transcultural Mental Health Centre is definitely accessible by all our migrants and refugees despite their visa status, whether it's still they're waiting for the outcome, whether they are on temporary visa. Even in the COVID time, we helping quite significant number of international students. So it's not only just we providing the psychiatric service, but we also connect them to other government services, because primary health is accessible to all our residents of Australians. However, we do work with a lot of other organizations once they are discharged from inpatient unit or from the community team. We do connect them with other service. One of the service, actually, a few of my colleagues here present from World Wellness Group, they've been, yes, they've been very closely working with us, and they're very supportive organization. So we try to help most of the people that come through our doors. So if you have anybody, if there is a break, I'm happy to chat with you, and we can talk about how we can work with your organization together. And definitely we can try and provide support. I wish there is a social worker leading the world. So we would have resolution to lots of stuff. So I mean, I do see lots of cases through our doors where in similar situation, they've been somewhere else, they've been in Australia with no visa, lots of other stuff they can't access, and it's a very difficult and very, very unpleasant situation, but there are lots of other kind people, officially or unofficially, we try and work with.
And there's a break coming up very shortly, so it would be a good time to take this conversation further.
I was just saying a lot of them are hoping that we have a change of government, because they think the Labor government is going to help them. That's what they keep telling me. Don't worry, there's going to be a change of government.
I wish that brings positive change for everyone, not only for our migrant population.
I just have a question following up on the Lady Mayoress Nina Schrimmer, how she mentioned that the youth are facing a lot of anxiety. And I feel there's a lot of stigma, and the parents are not comfortable taking the children to a professional psychiatrist or a psychologist. There's a couple of what I hear in the community is that if there is medication given to the child, then that will affect the studies, or it can be lifelong effects on it. So could you clarify on this, that if there a child severe suffering from depression or anxiety and they need to be given medication for that, of course they need medication.
Yeah, I think the use of medication is the last thing. I think initially when they try to assess, there is always a psychological thing first.
Okay.
I think you need to understand, people always think the antidepressant medication or anxiety medication starting for children, it's going to become dependent or cause some side effect. Well, if you look at people suffering from ADHD, yes, if your medication is given for ADHD, if you don't monitor properly, it might affect a little bit of their growth and it affect other things. But antidepressant medication, if it is really need to be given, they look at all the aspects. First, look at the psychological support, look at the psychosocial support. If things are not helping, look at the family support, how they can help. In spite of that, if they are persistently going through a depression, then through child psychiatrist, they do assess carefully. And yes, the reports and statistic evidences show sometimes the antidepressant medication can increase suicidal ideations. But that is not the same for everyone, but it will be monitored. So don't worry about it. The medication given only if it is needed, not as the first line.
And if it's prescribed, then it is definitely needed.
Yep.
And it will make the life of the child or any person better. So thinking about the future, it's going to impact the future, the growth and everything. We're actually not letting the person live now. So if the medication is prescribed, then it is needed for the person now.
I think one of the difficulty with people coming from different culture, they don't give the appropriate dose. They start reducing and they start giving what they think is right. I think that should be avoided.
Yes, and I think this is
All right?
a good forum, especially for our community to know
Absolutely.
that if they need help, it is important. And they
Definitely, because what happened when you look at the medication, there is a therapeutic level dose. If it is not given, probably you're not going to get the adequate response. So one of the key things is that whatever is prescribed, you need to adhere to the dose, not taking too much. If you take too much, it will become overdose. If you take underdose, it will become poor therapeutic response. So you need to take the right dose.
Thank you, Doctor.
Just wanted to add on that. I've got teenage children myself, and it's a very hard topic, especially coming from a different cultural background. Stigma is a huge thing that stops us even to talk about it with our children. That's where we work very closely with psychiatrists in the community, as well as GP, as well as our mental health team itself, where a lot of time is spent with the family. What do they think about it? How the treatment should be provided? Lots of education around medication, dosage, and then help them in that process, holding their hand and kind of assessing whether benefit of taking this medication the doctor is prescribing you is more for you, and if you don't adhere or if you don't take the medication is now, how it's going to impact your child's future. So sometime in adulthood they could have much significant mental health issues like that. So that's where we work very closely with lots of other mental health services.
Okay. Can we have two more? Oh, we've got a few hands. Okay.
Auntie Betty, I just want to ask Dr. Ferreira. You're on Bunjalung country. Do you treat any Bunjalung people? Or have you treated any Aboriginal Torres Strait people?
Auntie Betty, I'm not a doctor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What are you then?
Your country will be in big trouble if I start treating big trouble.
Well, maybe some of the panel, the other panel, if you're treating Aboriginal Torres Strait people.
I'm a business owner. I run my own business. I'm a volunteer speaker for the Black Dog Institute. So,
okay.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor.
But from a mental health perspective, From
transcultural mental health, our focus area is culturally diverse people. However, in Queensland Health, we have specialised mental health services for our Indigenous communities.
You don't have any knowledge of any Aboriginal specific programs or information that is being used? Because currently we have the highest youth suicide rates in the world. Aboriginal people are experiencing youth suicide rates at an alarming rate. We are only 3% of this population, yet we top everything. You name it: incarceration, domestic violence, youth suicide, child removal. From my perspective as an elder, we are totally separated from this system that's been imposed on us. We don't fit this system. We have had our own system for 65,000 years. And in 200 years, we're supposed to let go of that system that was managed perfectly for so long. That's the issue for us in terms of our mental health. We're disconnected, we're dislocated, we're everything, disadvantaged, because we can't access our lands, which we survived on for so long. We're separated from that. Our culture is our land. Our culture is on our land. We don't access our culture. We've only got bits and pieces of it now. How do we as a people amend this? How do we get through this? I do believe that some of the mental health workers in Queensland Health have been attending Tracy Westerman's training in Western Australia. Tracy Westerman is an authority on Aboriginal culture because she's using the cultural perspectives instead of medication. We don't, we've always used our own traditional methods of healing. Not many of us will take prescribed medication because we don't think it benefits us. We would prefer our own traditional healing. I know that in Adelaide, the Adelaide Hospital has now faith healers on board. That's actually curing our people of diabetes, and because it's the faith they have, not necessarily the medication. It's the faith they have in these people that are fixing them. So I worked with the Royal College of General Practitioners. I go and do role plays there as an Aboriginal patient. Again, they're trying to understand, but they're not taking it any further. we as Aboriginal people are still behind the 8 ball in all of this. Can I please encourage these practitioners to have a look at Tracy Westerman's work and to learn from some of that work so that our people will face better lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very, very, very important because practicing here as a psychiatrist, I worked in the government sector for 15 years. People do go through the training respecting the indigenous culture and also helping what are the cultural input can be provided if somebody is admitted. We do talk to the elders when they come into the hospital. We do ask them, do you have any traditional method that you want to follow? We do accommodate that. They generally come into the ward and they try to support. The other thing about the training, the perception about the mental state of someone, indigenous person, what they go through, if they're not very sensitive, then it leads to misinterpretation about what they're expressing. For example, looking eye to eye or looking down is the main thing. Most of the time, the indigenous patient, they don't look at eye to eye, mean of respect. They always try to look down. It doesn't mean that they're depressed, but it's a mark of respect. The other thing, if you look at the suicide, substance abuse, is very, very significant issues. I think the training what they provide is to identify in the beginning and trying to address and use the cultural model into psychiatry and respecting the views. At the same time, there is an extent to which it can go, but if you look at the inpatient services are different. But if it is in the community, that is where the community team, they go and talk to the elders in the family or elders in the community, what are the specific support you need. Definitely people go through the training. They do get update very often about what are the things need to be included as part of a treatment plan.
Thank you, Dr.
Sorry, can I just add in, I'm actually a Queensland Health employee as well, and we now have Indigenous liaison officers. Oh, sorry.
You have a Mental Health Commission, don't you?
Yes, we have, and so every hospital will have an Indigenous liaison officer. So when you first walk through the door, you can ask to consult with them before you speak to anybody else. They will direct you to who within there can access, but they're the cultural liaison officer to make sure that you're having... well, there you go, you know about it. So yes, and we do a whole day induction course when we very first start. I've just moved to Darling Downs and we learn all about the local tribes, the Indigenous tribes, and from their perspectives. I'm not actually, I'm half Indian, half Australian, but it is something I'm a very big advocate for.
And that I was there, I was talking to patients, and when I tried to share my knowledge about spiritual healing, I was shut down by a white psychologist who said, that's not relevant here.
There is a big movement going on right now where we're getting it back into the hospitals and making sure there's the deadly van that travels from Metro North that's travelling around consulting communities as well. So it is something that's becoming much more a part of the treatment right from the very beginning. But certainly your first point of call is the Indigenous liaison officer when you first arrive, and they can direct you to culturally sensitive consultants for you. Hope that helps, Auntie Betty.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thanks for that amazing answer, so elaborative. And thank you, Auntie Betty, for that question.
Excuse me, a bit sorry. Can I ask one last question,
yes,
if you don't mind?
We'll have one more question and then we'll take
Sorry,
a break.
I'm the one person, but I have two questions, if you don't mind. Would be very quick, okay? So the first question to the doctor, we talk about the medication is very important. Definitely, we need it. We need to take it. Also, many people talk about ask someone to help you, people around you. Very important, yeah. Somebody's on a medication, but that's a last resource, you say, then, and the people, I'm talking because it's my someone from my nearness, and then a live experience, that's what I'm talking about. That person doesn't want to be on a medication. He or she does want to. He said no, I don't want to go on a medication. I want to reduce. And they've been going through the procedure about withdrawal the medication, and the person is suffering from the withdrawal symptom, like every medication has. We talk about like talking to other people around you, but what do you think about the importance of the self-coping mechanism? Like, you know, like self-esteem, we talk about the self-confidence, we talk about, is it really important for the person to like, because sometimes you by your own, like not every time people around you. So what do you think, is it important, and what are the techniques would you suggest as a doctor as a self-coping mechanism, and would it really helpful?
Thank you. That's what I said, the psychological support, what we call cognitive behavior therapy. So most of the time, if you go to the GP, once the GP assesses you, if he initially starts the medication, he also makes something called mental health care plan. When he makes a mental health care plan, then according to the government, you can get 20 sessions with a psychologist. The psychologist try to teach you about the coping strategies, and slowly they start going through what is called cognitive behavior therapy. Your cognitions and the emotions. What are the cognitive errors in the thinking? Then trying to use your emotion to how to overcome this. These are the techniques will be taught by the psychologist, and you will have continuous support during the process. Okay. Different person needs different psychological support. For example, somebody suffers from psychotic illness. Yes, in the longer term, you need some sort of CBT program, but initially you need medication to contain his psychotic symptoms. But someone having a depression and anxiety, someone who is not keen to go on to the medication, that's why we go through the cognitive behavior therapy program, supportive therapy program, interpersonal relationship therapy program. There are a lot of programs depending on the circumstances. For example, if there is a death in the family, when they're going through the grief process, there is a grief support program through a cognitive behavior therapy program. So everything is available, you need to reach out. Okay. Once you reach out, definitely there is appropriate psychological program depending on the diagnosis, what they're suffering.
Okay. Thank you, that's really helpful. Second question to from somebody from GOPIO can ask is like, sorry, I'm telling you the name, so sorry, that's my bad. But you, I think, Sonia, thanks for that, appreciate it. Sonia, like you did mention about that there is a multicultural, which is a really great initiative. You talk about the language barrier, which is a really great, like when I come as a student, like I know I face myself as a language barrier. But like people like in our community, when we raising this awareness, people are suffering with mental illness. Is there any sort of readily available things like when the psychologists or any other services which is available, like they speak in their first language? Because it's a difference. When you speak in your first language than speaking in English, you know, your second language, it does make a difference. You feel more like attached when you're talking to them. So is there something service available?
Yes, so first of all, interpreters are freely available through your GP, and you can request your GP to organize an interpreter. And I would like to encourage all our members here and in all the communities we work with, because when somebody suffers from any mental illness or distress, we tend to go back to our mother tongue very quickly. Even if we are very fluent in English, but I notice that with myself also when I'm distressed, you know, whenever, you know, even at home, when you're angry or something, your mother tongue comes very quickly. So for anybody, I think even if we speak really well, the terminology in mental health sometimes we are not familiar with. Even with other issues like domestic violence and all the legal issues or anything, lots of things we're not very familiar with the terminology. So interpreter use is very, very important and crucial. Especially in mental health, talking about medication, talking about therapy, what you can expect, what are your rights, especially people who are treated under treatment authority, that's a whole different topic. That simple language mean when the patient or doesn't have the capacity to make decision about their treatment, then a doctor make a decision. So those sort of things also need interpreter use. Our services, mental health, inpatient, community teams and transcultural, we do use interpreters frequently. Our bicultural workers are actually providing us with interpreting as well as cultural support together. But that's specialized only for our service when we're working with it. But most of other services have interpreters, and sometimes people do refuse just because they feel judged, but I think they have every right to request interpreters. We do have lists in our own organization. Sometimes community organization members or GP will call us and say, do you know so-and-so psychologist with this language group or that understanding? We do have, but we don't have enough. I think we are lucky as an Indian community. We do have lots of doctors, GPs, psychiatrists, and I think psychologists I haven't seen as many, but lots of mental health practitioners within the system who speaks language like most North Indian languages, sometimes Southern Indian, but not all communities are as lucky, but definitely interpreters are available. And all our patients can request.
Yeah, that is very true, interpreter available. Like, but is it something like a list, something that we can create? Like you said, like not many psychologists available, like, but the psychiatrist, the doctor, I wasn't aware about Dr. Soman, like he's, like something like from the Indian community or multicultural community. So we have a list available of those doctors or psychologists or the services, which on the one click I can go and I can search, okay, yeah, this person, this doctor can speak Gujarati or whatever the Indian language.
Maybe Umeshji, you would, if your organization
something
can
like
support with something like that?
I don't know, is a feasibility side of it. Something I was thinking, like, is it a possibility?
I think if you specifically want about the language, you need to identify the doctor, and you can check through APRA website what are the languages the doctor can speak.
Okay.
If you type about any doctor that you're going to see, go to the APRA site and just type his name, and it will tell you what are the languages the doctor can speak.
Okay,
So that's the only way you can get. Otherwise, getting a list in the public system is going to be difficult. In private sector, it's very limited. At the same time, accessing it depends on various factors. Unless you have a private insurance to go through, get some support. In the public system, I think just getting the support through the interpreter system is good. But in my experience, it has got two ways. One way it is helpful, the other way they don't want the person who speaks the same language to be present there because of the personal issues. When they go through the personal information, they say, I don't want this person. For example, I can give one scenario. An Indian patient who speaks Indian Tamil doesn't want a Sri Lankan Tamil to be an interpreter because they say their way of pronouncing and interpreting things is different. We need to respect that. So that's why we need to leave at the end of the day what they want. But what Sonia said, the capacity issue, in case if they are on a treatment authority of Mental Health Act, then definitely the interpreter services will be provided. At least they know what they are doing and what they are going through.
Interpretation services are available for not only medical, for legal profession as well. And when we're dealing with QPS as well, in fact, we just had the QPS the meeting, and the key point there was on interpretation and that not having enough. There was the submission from the African community that the same topic that you have touched about, that different areas, even though the language might be same, their pronunciation and the way that they say things would be different. If you look at the Indian community, so someone from India and someone is from Fiji, even though it's Indian, they're speaking Hindi, but it will be quite different. They will not be able to, in a Fiji person will be able to explain to India person, but Indian one will be, it will be very hard for them to converse to the Fiji one. So they need a slightly different. So, these are the issues that will be. And of course, with doctors, I think one source could be IMAQ, the Indian Medical Association of Queensland. I think that some of their members might be here as well. They're putting out a list of doctors who speak some languages from the subcontinent. But the interpretation service is available for every aspect. Domestic violence services. If you go to QPS, you've got a right. You've got a right, and they will provide. They will provide a NATI accredited interpreter.
And through APRA, you can also look for psychologists, as Dr. Saab said, that through APRA, psychologist list is available. I think especially in the light of COVID, we did get something positive that a lot of telehealth is happening interstate. So you may be lucky to find the language you're looking for.
Thank you, everyone. That was a wonderful discussion. I just want to check if there's any more
I
questions.
just want to ask one question, if that's okay. Dr. Suman and Dr. Sonia, we all know it because of COVID, the whole world is shaken, right? And everyone is pretty much handling this mental problem. I myself help a lot of women as well. And I have recently seen some women try to do suicide again and again. In fact, I know 2 ladies who literally survived 4 times. I know one lady just did it last week again, because she's back home and there is not much support. So my question is there any program, any way we can help those who are suffering silently? We can send them some program, or we can kind of motivate them towards life. Anything we can show, or you guys have any kind of recommendations?
Let's have a quick question answer session.
Very quickly, I did share a resource with Arpit, and if you feel free, I think the members who have provided their email, please share the electronic copy that's about sort of helping your family members. Hop on the Transcultural website and you will see some resources. I got my colleague here, Dr. Victoria Vibakar, and she's our statewide lead for prevention programs, and she and her other team members have developed a wonderful resource for other services who are other than mental health, but they can be very useful for people in the community too.
I think if you think they're acutely suicidal, you need to understand there is something called acutely suicidal. That means they're contemplating on doing something, or they self-harm themselves. You need to immediately take them to acute unit or emergency department. Apart from that, if you think they're just talking about those things, probably take them to the GP, then they put you across to the psychologist for support. There is also a number of hotlines you can talk to them and get some help. But you need to remember what I said about if they're constantly talking about hopelessness, you need to be mindful about getting quick professional support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Govan. We'll have, I just don't want to miss out on any questions. Yeah. Yes, so can we have a quick question answer session, please?
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to...
1 or 2 sentences, question, 1 or 2 sentences. Yeah. Sorry to be rushing, but we're running a bit late.
Yeah. I'll be short. But let me remind, we all know that the majority of us who are here have come to this country being a professional in their own fields. Because Australia never allowed just any Tom, Dick and Harry to enter this country when we came. And my name is Anil Karan, and I come from Fiji. And we are close associate with the GOPIO and all that. I know those people. Now, the problem is, all these services that you people are saying that is available here, how accessible it is, right? I have got personal experience. No one wants to care about you. I had entered this country as a civil engineer. I worked for Brisbane City Council for 17 years, and then when you go on leave, you come back, your position's taken, though you're paid high, but you're put at a low price. Australia, I find, is the most discriminating country. At a lower level, technical, you feel great. You can make a lot of money. But when you come in here as a professional, and you're progressing. I had been at one of the top positions in Brisbane City Council as a water engineer. A lot of depression is there. And then I was marked as the mongrel, the black mongrel. So I can see the black dog organization, but I'm the black mongrel in Brisbane City Council. However, I ended up with brain tumor. And I'm a survivor. Here, opportunities are there that you go and talk to the people. I went to those organizations, but everyone talks negative. And I said, no, I'm not coming. So it's been 17 years now that I have had this brain tumor, and today, touch wood, I'm perfectly fine. My problem now is I've lost all the friends. People thought, oh, this guy's gone cuckoo, he's going to die. But I refrained. The first thing, I took that opportunity to work out myself. I stopped watching news in the morning. I don't want to see what happens right around the world and what happens. I would see that news in the evening. I will not start my day with negativity. So I'd say to everyone here, whatever you're suffering from, be positive.
Can we come to the question? Sorry, we're all hungry. We're waiting for the meal.
And right. And with that, I have never left the problem. And today, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor of business management, being an engineer and doctor of business management. And recently, I finished because after a lot of time of gap with cancer, I finally finished up my doctorate in business management. And the thesis was on psychosynaptics.
We have a round of applause for that.
Psychosynaptics of business management.
So the question is, obviously, is it more accessible? How accessible are the services? Can we have Sonia ji answer
Just
that?
quickly before I just hand over, is the role of my organization within mental health or within health system is to help culturally diverse community to eliminate those barriers for them. So that's way from, in simple language, that's what we do, whether it's language barrier, whether it's stigma, whether it's understanding. So, I mean, I'm sure we haven't been able to do it 100%, otherwise we wouldn't exist. But if there is anything we can do for anyone, we will be here around the break, myself and my colleague, and my colleagues from WWG also. We are happy to assist and provide information. Feel free to call us. There is MH call flyer outside sitting on the desk. Feel free to take home. It has some information, and any acute illness or anything acute period of your life, feel free to call them. As well as my organization, Transcultural Mental Health flyer is also there. Please contact us.
In my experience, it's very accessible, just a phone call away. Thank you so much for that question. I'll pass it on to Bhagya. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
I think depending on the individual needs, they always try to prioritize what exactly the services and support services needed. I think what Sonia said, definitely the services are there, but it varies from person to person. But we need to prioritize what actually you want to get help. That's the main thing they need to translate. If they say, I want to get support for everything, no, you just say that I need a support for this particular issue. Can somebody put me across to the right person? Definitely the services are available. I've seen most of the people are getting some supports.
Thank you, Dr. Ellen Govind. Thank you so much for that.
So you want to say it?
Over to you, Zain and Bhagya.
Yes, so I'm sure we have a lot more questions, so please feel free. I'm sure all four professionals will be willing to have a chat during our dinner and after. But until then, we have a small break, and after that we're going to have an amazing play by Donna Gomez and her team, so stay tuned. It's a wonderful play organized.
Please head out to the foyer from the left-hand side to pick up your packed dinners, and due to limited space, please come back inside to have your dinners, and we shall begin again in approximately 25 minutes. Thank you.
15 minutes. We're starting in 15
minutes.
Okay, thank you everyone.